All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wonderful Business Show. My name is Brownrigg. I help holistic health coaches figure out how to run meaningful money-making brands. And today with me, my special guest is Dr. Melissa Hurt she's the owner of Integrative Studio. And we'll be talking about what it means for her to run a truly wonder-filled business. Remember, in the show, we are looking at reframing the way that people, especially in the healthcare space, are running businesses away from the industrial and patriarchal way of running business to more of a holistic, meaningful, wonderful business. And we'll get a little bit more into what exactly that means. First, Melissa, thank you so much for being here. It's an honor.
Thank you so much. It's fun to be here with you.
Absolutely. So Melissa has a whole repertoire behind her name. She's got 3 degrees, a BA, MFA, PhD. She's published 2 books. She has over 700 hours of yoga teaching certification and is a LESAC certified trainer of voice and speech. But all this pretty much means, she says, is that she works with intention, is deeply curious about the human condition, and tenacious. So does that sound about right?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
That's awesome. So the way that we're going to go about the show is through going through the different stages of wonder. We need 4 things in order to create a wonder-filled business. First, we need an audience. Then we need to have the unknown for the audience to go into. Then the audience needs to experience the authentic good when they're in the unknown. And then finally, there's this element of gratitude that gets experienced. So for you, Melissa, what was your first moment of wonder, so we can kind of get grounded in this concept?
Sure. I love that question. I think speaking about it in my adult life, I mean, certainly children are enraptured in wonder all the time, but we just call that childhood, which is great. But I can remember clearly when I was getting my PhD, I was in my early 30s. And I had high anxiety, but I thought it was because I was an East Coaster. You know, I just assumed that was just who I was. But I started doing yoga at the same time. And one day I can remember I had to do some grocery shopping after my yoga class. And I remember parking my car in the lot, and I got out and I looked at the sky, and it was a completely different color. Like, it was like this color of like blue, and it was clear in a way that I had never, ever seen before. And I can remember looking at the people like walking to their cars, and they seemed different to me. And like everything was different. And then I realized that they were not different, but I was different. And I realized that was the first time I did not feel anxiety. Like, it was my first experience of feeling grounded. And people had talked about it all the time, like, oh, get grounded. And like, yeah, I am grounded. But I truly felt what it was like to, be completely connected to my surroundings, to my community, with myself. And I was at such ease and peace. I had no sense of hurry in me. And I can remember walking up and down the aisles of the supermarket, just feeling such an immense love and curiosity for like all of these products around me. And, but I was very clear and grounded and focused, and just as intelligent as I was before. I wasn't, spaced out by any way, but I just did not have a cloud of anxiety choking me. And I was able to see very clearly what possibilities were around me, albeit it was in a supermarket, but I was able to carry that over into relationships and just ways of thinking. So that was absolutely my first profound moment of wonder.
Wow. Isn't it incredible how it comes at such an unexpected time? Like, you were going to the grocery store. Yeah. And then it came. Was there a catalyst that brought this about? Or was it just like you felt like your body, your being just said, all right, enough. I'm enough. Let's get grounded. Let's get back to the basics.
I think that's such a great question. I can remember the first yoga class I did. I remember I was dressed in like biker shorts and like a sports bra that was too tight and like a tank. I thought I was going to break a sweat. I was like, I'm going to yoga. I had no idea what it was, clearly. And And I remember my teacher was this beautiful, sweet soul who taught a class. She did like 20 or 25 minutes of yoga philosophy at the beginning of every class, where we would just learn a yogic principle and discuss it around the circle. And then we would do some breathing practice, and then we do very slow movement. And I can remember for, maybe the first several classes, it was really hard for me to close my eyes in Shavasana. My eyes were wide open because I'm thinking, okay, I still have to write this paper when I get home. Like, it just took a while for my body and mind to slow down to her rhythm that she was presenting in the class. But then over time, it just felt like home. It was like, oh my gosh, finally I have yoga class. So nobody cared that I was getting a PhD. Nobody cared about my areas of expertise. No one cares about any of that ego stuff when you're in a yoga class. They just want you to show up and breathe and feel kindness for yourself and be kind to other people. And I thought, at that basic level, I can absolutely do that. And that's pretty awesome that that's all I need to do right now. And so I think it was really like a certain measure of stripping back my ego. I don't think it was more than a few months, but just a few months of peeling back one layer of onion skin at a time, week after week, until finally it just kind of happened, But I think it's like with any other practice, you keep doing the work, you keep showing up. That's where the intention becomes really important. If you just keep showing up for yourself, it will happen. But it's keeping that measure of faith that something is happening, even if you have no clue what it is. Though, that you're not the same person from when you started, and you're okay with that.
Yeah, there's a transformation. The way I see wonder is it's a signal of transformation. The more we the more we expose ourselves to wonder and gratitude, the more chance that transformative experiences will happen to us that we can engage in them. So that's
I totally agree.
Great example of that. That's beautiful. And so, speaking of this transformative process that took place in your life, I wonder how that inspired you to get started with your own business, and how that, in effect, helped you pick your niche. So, with your current business, how did it start? Who were the first groups of people that you are looking to serve?
Yeah, my business is Integrative Studio, and I started that. It's funny because I started teaching yoga, well, just to kind of, there's a big gap that happens between that moment in the supermarket and then when I started Integrative Studio, because in between there, I did complete my PhD. I turned my dissertation into a book. I was teaching at the college level, and I started to also come into getting a yoga certification because it was such a profound force in my own life. I just wanted to not only learn all I could about it, but offer it back to people. And so and along that journey, I got pregnant with my daughter, was a stay-at-home mom. And so my very first clients, if you will, not necessarily with my business Integrative Studio, but a focused group that I wanted to serve. Let's just call that my niche.
Yes.
It was women, prenatal yoga and postnatal yoga. I wanted to serve in women's health.
Nice.
Because what I was noticing, well, first of all, I knew for myself how exhausting it was to be a stay-at-home parent. But working parents have it hard too. Like, it's really just hard overall. But what I found was when your body hurts and when you're tired, your mind just cannot really integrate into your body, because that pain in your back is distracting you from your highest good. So then you can't show up as your best self to your child. Your child gets a grumpy mom. And then by dinner time, it's a cranky mom, and then maybe a reactive mom, and so it's just a yucky cycle. And so the first groups I really started to dedicate myself to were women in those situations, because I wanted to offer some measure of healing for the family. In turn, because I was working with women, I was really serving their kids, in some way, because the last thing that I want is this next generation to be the product of distracted, anxious, overwrought parents. You know, I mean, it's just a very sad picture for me to think about a whole generation of kids who are not truly connected with the family unit. So I thought, well, then I can serve these kids and get to know them, and also, you know, help the moms feel connected to themselves. And so I named my business Integrative Studio because my BA, MFA, and PhD are all in theater. And my PhD is focused on acting theory. And so like I am deeply interested and curious about performance, and not just, you know, becoming, you know, Juliet on stage, but like all levels of performance in everyday life, like how we show up and how our behaviors are different when we're with mom versus our behaviors being different when we're with our boss versus when we're with our kids, you know, and things like that. So in my business, I integrated acting practice and theory, yoga practice and yoga theory, and then embodied voice work, because all of these modalities get to the core of learning about yourself so that you can show up as your best self, regardless of what you're doing. So whether I'm working with a mom who's staying home with her child, she can learn about herself so she can be true to herself while also taking care of her child, which in turn is giving that child a more balanced mother, but also modeling to the child what it means to be your truly best self. Or if I'm teaching that skill set to a corporate professional so that that person can feel balanced in the workspace and then carry that home to work. You know, as we know, everything kind of ripples out when you're truly enmeshed in the work. So, so my first niche was women, to help them feel well while they were parenting, but then it opened up, and now my current work is serving professionals who are in leadership positions or want to step up into leadership positions, but are plagued with imposter syndrome. So I help them understand themselves fully. I call myself a communication coach from the inside out, because it's when you understand how you communicate with yourself, like your self-talk, your inner critic, your how does fear express itself to you? All of that is what triggers imposter syndrome. So once you get to the root of that, you can then open yourself up and show up more fully in your personal relationships and your professional relationships. And I call it flipping the switch. You go from being turned off and making yourself small, or you're puffing out your chest in this false bravado, to flipping the switch to being your truly ignited, focused, clear, empowered self.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So did you pick them, or did they pick you through a series of events?
Oh my gosh.
Was it a bit of both?
It's funny. It's a little bit of both. I feel like the way that my life has played out, I am very thankful to God for all of the experiences that I have had, and all of the strife and hardship, and, you know, the school of hard knocks and all of that, because it's just my personality to try to figure that out and learn a toolkit, you know? And so, and once I learn something, it's my nature to be like, well, I have to share this with people. Like, I can't keep all this for me. And so in many ways, it's because of what I've experienced in myself that I've learned a whole practice to be able to share with other people. So in some ways, I feel like it's a mutual finding of one another, because I do believe that the way you show up in the world creates the energy that comes to you in the world. You know, like, because I dealt with imposter syndrome during my PhD, I know what it feels like to have an inflated ego. I know what it feels like confidence, and to cover that with just a bad attitude. Not like I was like a horrible person, but, you know, people get snarky and reactive, and defensive. So I know what it's like to be that person. But because I've done a lot of work to undo all of that and shown up as my best self, the people who need that, I feel like I see them, they see me, and I'm able to serve them. And then they are able to shed their layers. And then there's that beautiful ripple effect again.
And so that was the first section of understanding our niche, our audience. The next is trust. How do you earn trust with these leaders who need to overcome imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I love that question too. I think that first, I have a few ways of working with people. I'm very intuitive. I deeply listen to my clients, and I listen with my eyes as well. Because I'm a certified voice trainer, I can detect a deeply felt tension, whether it's physical or emotional, through the voice.
Hmm.
And even if they are not able to necessarily identify it in themselves, I just have a way of knowing
Hmm.
what's happening. And just through getting to know them on a heart level, I'm just, we're just shooting the breeze. I'm not asking any kind of like therapy questions, but I just have a way of feeling them where they are.
Uh-huh.
And then I offer practices that are immediate. So we all know that, like, taking 3 grounded deep breaths can pretty much instantly calm you down.
Hmm.
Um, the toolkit that I have at the start is it's simple practices that are highly effective. And so whether it's a voice practice, whether it's changing a thought paradigm, or whether it's, a breathing practice, um, usually within 5 minutes, I can completely get them feeling something different emotionally, mentally, and or physically. And
Hmm.
once they feel that, well, then they know that I offer truly good things. I'm not a snake oil salesman. I'm
Hmm.
not trying to just sell them something and not offer something of real value. And I also keep it real with them that the amount of work they put into their personal development will exponentially grow on the other side. But at some part of that, they do have to just trust me. Sometimes trust is just taking that first step, that leap that you can't see where the stone is that you're stepping onto. But they
Hmm.
have to know that when I say I'm holding it, that I am.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's building little bit by little bit. So you offering them something
Yeah.
simple that gets them that result signals to their subconscious that, oh, this is something that I can rely on, that I can trust on. And so when that leap of faith
Yeah.
gets presented, they feel a modicum of safety that, okay, if I step on this, I know that she's got
Yeah.
me. I know that she's got me, which leads us
It's
beautifully into
true.
our next section, which is the unknown. So you've established
Mm.
trust with them. They know that they can take the step onto the what do we call it, the
This
stone,
path.
yeah,
Yeah,
the
the
path,
stone path.
the stone path,
Yeah.
and you're there. So what is the scariest part of this transformative journey for them?
Oy. It is a really dark, deep dive to get to know yourself.
Hmm.
It, it is very scary to sit by yourself and not talk. I mean, there are some people that have a very hard time not talking. And there's just, they're so used to their senses receiving something that to be quiet and still feels like the world is about to explode,
Hmm.
right? Like, and I know what that feels like because I was that person many, many, many years ago. That's why I had my eyes wide open in Shavasana. I'm like, I can't close my eyes, and what's I have to do all this stuff. So the scariest part is yeah, going inward, closing your eyes, feeling your breath. And then once you feel your breath, can you feel your breath changing the shape of your body? As you inhale, your body expands. As you exhale, your body contracts. And then once you feel that, can you then maybe notice temperature? Like just little baby steps. And then eventually, can you then notice your thoughts? Just notice them. You don't have to attach to a story. You don't have to make up a narrative for why you're having the thoughts, but just notice the thoughts. And
Hmm.
then over time, I help them realize, like, is it your voice in your head that you're like, and I don't mean like in a crazy way, but like sometimes they hear word choice that's actually the words their father said to them so many years ago.
Hmm.
And that's what's triggering a lot of insecurity. So
Interesting.
then once they can objectively notice that, then they realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm at the center of this entire experience. So
Hmm.
I can choose to not go along with that thought that's coming along. I
Hmm.
can be responsive to it and take responsibility for myself to do something different than what I've been doing my whole life.
Hmm.
But those first few steps of, I call it walking into a dark, cluttered attic.
Hmm.
Like there's so much stuff in there and it's dark and you don't, you're all you know is you're bumping into stuff. It's scary because you don't know what's there. But once you see that little first shed of light, you notice, oh, this is all my stuff. And I'm at the center of all of this. And this is actually going to be just great.
Hmm.
Um, So yeah, it just becomes very rewarding and liberating to clear out the attic clutter, so to speak.
Yeah, but that's such a beautiful example too, is the attic clutter. Like, how many of us fear going into the attic and like wanting to move things around and figuring out, do we throw this out? Do we keep this? Like, how do we, and it just feels completely overwhelming.
Well, we also tend to do that. I mean, we do that in our minds all the time. We think, I'm just going to deal with this later. I can't deal with this right now.
Right.
You know, and so we stuff stuff. It's like we think about that famous line from Gone with the Wind, Scarlett O'Hara would say, well, I can't think about that now. I'll just have to think about that tomorrow. You know, it's like, we tend to do that all the time. You know, like, oh, I can't handle the attitude I got from that person. I'm going to nip that later. Or, you know, all kinds of stuff that we just stuff, right?
Yeah.
But that stuff accumulates. And the more that we don't come to terms with how we're showing up or not showing up, you know, and denying ourselves, I don't know, coming to terms with how we treat other people or how we treat the environment. There's all kinds of things that we're stuffing. And so it is scary to first take a look at that with loving kindness. That's my golden rule with my clients that I teach them. It's never about criticism. It's never about shaming, ever. It's always about, oh, look what's here. Okay, let's look at it.
And once they've looked at it and they've been able to borrow some of your energy and your expertise in order to kind of unclutter and acknowledge these thoughts that they're having, what is the authentic good or the manifestation of authentic good that they experience once they've gone through that process with you? What does that look like?
Yeah. It's so beautiful because what they see is the first genuine taste of that authentic good, which I call your highest vibration, your highest good, is when they are responsive and not reactive. That is such a radical change in behavior, to just respond to something and be like, oh, I see you, I hear you, I understand where you're coming from. And here's what I'm going to do that is not in any way depleting of myself, but honoring what I feel is appropriate for this moment. You know, like when they are able to experience that, it's a game changer for them, because many people have been conditioned to have to, like, you know, if they get that frantic email from a report or from a manager that says, we need blah, 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 they take that energy and like, oh my gosh, I can't screw this up. And they're just frantic. And then that they're bringing that frantic energy into the next thing. And then they get home and they're talking to their husband like he's a direct report, because they're like still in that space of like spinning, you know? And so when they're able to feel as their authentic good, as you call it, is just being responsive and staying grounded and centered, focused, empowered, man, it changes everything. And really it all stems back to my initial mission of, by serving the mothers, I serve their children, because by serving my clients, I serve their management teams and then their families. Like, it really does all ripple out. And so the benefit just grows so much. Like, I have some clients now who are saying how just their teams are more productive because this one person has done the inner work to understand how he wants to show up, you know? So it's pretty great.
It's powerful. And the one way we know we've experienced wonder is if we can ascertain or feel gratitude from it. So what are some of the ways that your clients have expressed gratitude to you through this transformative process that you take them on?
You know, it's so funny because I think gratitude for me, like, I don't need more than someone to just say, oh, thank you for sharing that with me. But really what I see, what I take as gratitude is when I see them consistently showing up in the way that we have cultivated for themselves, even if it's 10 years prior, if they held on to the skills, held on to the practices, and they are continually up-leveling their lives. That, for me, I take that as like, I am so glad that you're doing that. Like, I've had clients that I've gotten in touch with through LinkedIn that I coached 10 years ago. And they say, oh yeah, you taught me a meditation practice. And I still do that to this day before I'm doing a presentation. And I'm thinking, I don't even really remember the nitty gritty of that meditation practice, because sometimes I will create a practice that's customized for that individual. Because again, like I'm just really intuitive and I know exactly what's happening in them vocally, physically, emotionally. And so I'll just create something for them. And I'm thinking, wow, that's really impactful for me to know that this thing that I created that we probably spent 10 minutes on in a coaching session, that they're still using 10 years later and it's still helping them. And so that for me, I take that as gratitude, because I'm so thankful for it myself that it's impactful.
And it is beautiful because it just shows how you've created your business creates wonder for you, that their outcome is a gratitude, like that you get to experience gratitude through their outcomes.
Yeah.
It's a clear signal that you've developed a machine of wonder through serving your clients. So it's not this regular repetitious thing that you have to, like force yourself to do because you have to make money. It's on a completely different level that's producing wonder for you as you move through the unknown of continually developing your business. And that's beautiful. So now we've gone through your Wonderfilled business venture. What's one thing that you could tell other practitioners that are looking to create Wonderfilled businesses as they get started? What would your advice be?
Oh my gosh. I think let curiosity be greatest asset. Like just stay genuinely curious about yourself. Stay curious about the learning process. Stay curious about your clients. And if your clients present a challenge to you that you don't know, instead of freaking out, say, oh, I'm really curious on how I'm going to figure that out. Like just keeping that level of curiosity, it just keeps your heart and your mind open. And there's a million ways to serve and show up as your best self. And so as long as you stay open to that, I think the world is your oyster.
Beautiful. Well, thanks so much for being on the show today, Melissa. Is it Dr. Melissa?
Sure. You can call me Melissa or Dr. Melissa.
Thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for being a shining example of what it means to create a wonderful business. I'm sure we'll see each other around soon.
That's great. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.